My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her that she might be made well and be healed. We see a man who's acting in hope. He's heard about Jesus. He's desperately concerned for his daughter. He acts in hope. He acts in faith. He reaches out to Jesus. Come, lay your hands on her, my little daughter at the point of death. And Jesus goes with him. We have a mission team here today. You can tell because of the shirts. Right? Yeah. Probably some others that don't have their shirts on yet. But I'm thinking about the mission team today with this gospel because we live in a world where there's a lot of desperate crying. There's a lot of things that we might say are at the point of death. The schools in our cities are so desperately struggling. People struggling with addiction. People struggling with poverty and the despair of inner city realities. We've often had mission teams go to, well, we've gone to Washington, D.C., we've gone to New York City, we've gone to Boston, we've gone to New Orleans, been to Philadelphia, been to Chester. And there's this, I think, a battle about what it means to be people of hope, people of faith, people of love. Because what can you really do? What difference can it really make for a mission team to go to Boston? And there's this tension between hope and skepticism. And I want us to think about that. I want us to look at Jesus. There's this tension between faith and fear, and love and sort of a futility. What's the point? So let's look at Jesus as he goes with this man who hoped in him, and they're going to respond to the need of his daughter. And then Mark says in his gospel, hold that thought. I want to tell you about someone else. Something else that happened while they're going. And a big crowd is gathering and pressing all about. And this woman who has also been desperate, hemorrhaging for 12 years. And I do want to point out what that means, not only from the medical point of view and her struggle to find help and get a doctor, and she keeps getting worse, but that means if she's hemorrhaging, that in her culture she's unclean. She can't go to the temple to worship and pray and seek God's help there. She can't go to synagogue and sit with the other women in synagogue. She's unclean. She has to try not to touch people. But in that kind of anonymous situation of a crowd, she sees something she might get away with. She has hope in this healer, this holy man, whoever he is, this Jesus. And so she makes her way through the crowd, and no one notices her in the confusion and the chaos, and she touches his cloak. And Jesus feels it. And then his disciples get a little skeptical. Oh yeah, you felt something, Lord. Oh yeah, who touched me, Lord? Are you kidding? In this crowd? Of course people touched you. But he insists that he was touched. And he won't move. So you see the whole thing grinding to a halt and sort of this confusion as he starts looking about for the person that touched him. And for her to come forward is a great risk. And that's why he says some of the things he does. He restores her to the community. You're well. Peace to you. You're not unclean anymore. You're well. And I want to stop, since Mark asked us to stop before we get to the rest of the story of the little daughter. Because, you know, we send these mission teams into the cities often, into the crowds, into the places where there's a lot of need and struggle and jostling, and you'll be moving through crowds and busy city streets. And I hope at the end of each day, you'll stop and you'll ask, who touched me? Who touched me? And indeed, who did I touch? And maybe you often won't even know. It might often be anonymous. You don't know who you touched. And maybe you don't know who touched you. But I want you to stop and ask that question. And not just the people going on mission, the people you're going to work every day and you're going on vacation. Who touched me? I think it's important to be people of faith and hope and love. People who understand that, you see, we walk with Christ, Jesus the Lord. And in a way, maybe we're the clothes that someone just wants to touch. And we don't know what God will do with that. That's not our job. Who touched me? And I give thanks to God for people who are willing to go into desperate situations, in hard situations, in depressing situations, just maybe to be touched, and maybe touch someone. And so Jesus moves on, except that before he even really takes a step, word comes that the little girl has died. Why bother? Why bother the teacher any further? There's nothing to do. And Jesus immediately says to the man, don't listen to that. Don't listen to that voice. Why bother? It's hopeless. There's no point. Don't listen. Don't be afraid. Only believe. And come with me. And he and James and John and Peter go to the house. And the people there are wailing and weeping, and Jesus says, no. She's not dead. And it tells us they laugh. It's probably a painful, bitter laugh. It's not funny. It's, to them, maybe pathetic, ridiculous, unrealistic, and absurd. Jesus isn't finished. So he puts them aside. It's important for us to put aside the voices that say, don't trouble. Don't bother. Why? What's the point? What do you think you're going to do? Put that out of the room. And he goes and he touches the little girl. He does what he was asked. He lays hands on her and she is made well. And he restores her to her home. So go with Christ. Go as people of faith, hope, and love. Walk with the Lord into Boston. Let people touch you. You know what I mean. Touch people. You know what I mean. And remember these words. I want you to take them with you from our first reading today. This I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Thanks be to God.